Welcome to a community of scholars. My name is James Koroma, and today we have a special guest named Karina Kim, and we have Miss Pereira here with us as well. So, can you start off by telling us a little bit about yourself?
I want to thank you for having me here today. I have been at Stony Brook for about 15 years as an undergrad as well as a grad student. I did my PhD here and my bachelor's degree here, and I thoroughly enjoyed the opportunities and education that I received from this university. After Stony Brook, I have also my LCSW, which is a licensed clinical social worker, as well as my LCADC, which is a licensed clinical drug and alcohol counselor, and I have my license in cosmetology. And I'm also a pet groomer, as I have rescued about 53 cats from the street and got them adopted into loving homes.
Wow.
I care about people in the community. That's my goal.
Amazing.
Thank you.
So, where did your passion for helping people really stem from?
I think I was born really caring about people and loving people because I was so interested and curious about every human being I saw. And I think it's just kind of where I grew up with a single mother, and I felt like she had a lot of stress, and then I noticed that other people who had stress were struggling, so I wanted to help people because I knew a little bit of where they were coming from, not that I knew exactly how they were living, but going through those challenges makes you feel compassionate towards other people. That's just who I was. And so I always wanted to give back, and I always wanted to help people in difficult times, and I believe that getting these skills and licenses would help me to help people. So that's why I went to social work school and got all the different degrees that I've gotten. And my PhD is in social welfare, so it's all about people and the bigger picture.
Can you tell us a little bit about the different places that you've helped different people in different spaces?
Sure. I worked in a methadone clinic for about 3.5 years in New Jersey, and it was right near Newark, Irvington, New Jersey. We had about 500 patients, and everybody there struggled with heroin addiction. And so they had medication-assisted treatment, which is methadone maintenance for this population. And about 90% of people who are ever addicted to opiates really cannot shake that medical disease and addiction. So the medication-assisted treatment really helped them to maintain their lives and function with the medication. Outside of that, only 10% of people who ever get addicted to opiate-based medications or drugs can get out of that cycle. And it's really difficult to function when you're always seeking a high and you have to get money for it, and you become homeless. People don't trust you. You have to steal. You have to go to jail. There's so many horrible things that happen to people when they're addicted to a drug biologically, which I never blame people for. So I've also worked in many outpatient clinics where I did psychotherapy for people with every different insurance or a lack of insurance. And I help people with depression, trauma, PTSD, with anxiety, with relationship issues, childhood abuse, sexual abuse, emotional, physical abuse, people in the foster care system, people who have had really veteran war status where they've had severe traumas that they've witnessed, whether vicariously or individually experienced it for themselves. I've worked in many places besides teaching at universities because I wanted to be very clear about how to help people in the front lines and how to understand their psychology, whatever they're going through, so that I can help them as quickly as I could and get out of there and let them do their lives after I help them a little bit, and hopefully, they got some tools to help themselves.
So you definitely have the credibility to speak to different spaces.
I hope
so. I feel like one question that I have for you is, what have you taken from all the different spaces that you've been in and that you've taught and you've assisted people who are in need of guidance, really?
I think that's a really good question because you want to know if your life mattered, even if you're not about to be in your rocking chair. You want to know that the experiences make you a better person. That's really what I've been seeing about myself, that everything that I do makes me more humble about trying to help people in the best way as possible. I wanted to help people as quickly and as effectively as possible with as little intervention because I want to be able to diagnose very fast and then give them the treatment plan goals and give them solutions to help them to get through their tough times. So I always tell people, appreciate every single moment that they're alive because we don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. And if they have injustices or if they feel like people don't like them or if they had trauma in their lives, whatever challenges that people go through, I believe that you have to always be thankful and be positive in order to get through them, and surround yourself with good people who care about you, even if it's one person. And if it can't be a person because you're not able to be around people, then get an animal. Get a dog or a cat who loves you, because you need that love to get through life and do the best you can, and living life with a passion, but not holding on to grudges of people who are negative and, make you feel like you're not good enough. We always have to strive to be, humble throughout our experiences, but challenge ourselves to be our best person.
I feel like a part of the biggest way that we can foster the mindset that you're explaining to us really is having an open mind.
Mm-hmm.
So where do you think it really begins in our life, essentially, where we start to develop those morals and those values?
Yeah. According to psychologists, around the age of 7, children know right from wrong by the age of 7. So until then, we really need to teach children at a young age, before 7, basically since they're born, right from wrong, and also to embrace other people who are different from them and how they grew up. I think it's really important to teach kindness to people and compassion to people, because if we don't teach that kind of moral goodness and ethical goodness, they're going to go out in the world. If they're angry, they're going to hurt someone. If they're really upset at someone else, they're going to curse them out. It's not necessary to be so negative in life, because life is truly short and we don't know what's going to happen the next day. So if children learn at this young age to be kind and to think of others as well as themselves, then we might have a much more peaceful and loving society. But I don't think we learn that in a mandatory way at schools, because only certain schools teach character development. It's very rare for schools to say, we're going to have a curriculum of teaching people how to get along with each other and to love them and respect them for who they are. But I think that's one of the most important things, because money doesn't mean anything unless you have a good society where people care about each other.
To piggyback on that, I agree. I feel like language is very important, and what you teach children is really important, because they are our future. And I do feel like we are moving to a more conscious state in society where we try to implement language more. I work at a daycare, so I see how these children are kind of taught at this institution, not bad and good, but inappropriate and appropriate, and not saying no, but like explaining to them why this is wrong, or like they shouldn't do this. So I feel like these skills are more implemented in like this infant toddler stage, but then sometimes as they get older, it kind of gets a little lost. So it's just maintaining that.
True, it starts very young.
Yeah, it does
That's
start
right.
very young, but I am hopeful that the future will be more positive.
Good. We need young people to feel hopeful, believe me,
Yeah.
and implement those good things.
So in the case that people haven't had the same moral upbringing as, in the sense that they haven't had the lessons that teach them to be open-minded, right? How do we bridge the gap between those who haven't had that foundation and
Yeah.
others who are still trying to develop?
Right. Well, I think it's important that you ask that, because just because someone's older and beyond 7 doesn't mean that there's no hope, right? People can still learn from this, but our approach to teaching them, if they're beyond 7 or just adults or even older adults, we can still teach them to be open-minded by giving them compassion and helping them to know that we're not attacking them for who they are, what they believe. We want to come with a kind and open-minded, humble attitude to say, this is my experience, and I just want you to understand where I'm coming from. I'm not blaming you for it being not in the know, being so-called ignorant. I try to use words that are not negative, but when we talk about ignorance, it's just that they don't know. And I never blame people for not knowing something, because if I come at people with saying, you have no idea and how dare you, you're really, I can't believe you don't know this. If I come at people like that, they can never hear what I have to say. My preference is to be more kind, more loving, more compassionate, try to see myself in their shoes. They grew up a certain way. They didn't have the same opportunities of being open-minded as I was, or they didn't avail themselves of doing that and push themselves maybe the way that I did, but it doesn't mean that they're any worse than me. I just want to still challenge them to hear what I have to say about bringing, openness and maybe diversity of minds for different things, but with a non-judgmental and a nurturing kind of attitude. I believe that using honey versus, using lemons is going to get you better results than coming at someone and saying, you're really ignorant.
It sounds like that employs a lot of emotional awareness. So
Sure.
how do you teach people to be more aware of their emotions in reference to dealing with microaggressions?
Okay, so I like that you use the microaggressions. Microaggressions are so subtle, right? It's almost unconscious. And so if we allow someone to have a psychodynamic exploration of their minds at the unconscious, also through compassion, again through kindness, again through nurturing words, using positive language so that we don't create barriers of understanding and communication, that's one of the best ways. Like trying to help someone to know their own emotions based on what they experienced that could have been negative about a certain issue or a person can help them to see that, maybe that was my experience and that's why I took it a certain way. And that's why my emotions got in the way and now I can't be open about it. So we have to help them at the unconscious level as well as the conscious emotional level to see where someone else is coming from on that level, like on their emotion from their own emotions. If you don't understand your own emotions, you can never try to understand someone else's because you're starting with a blind, you're being blind about what it is that you feel and why you're reacting that way. So you have to know where you're coming from before in order to confront what it is that is in front of you. But the unconscious is very important too.
Okay, thank you, Karina. Now we're going to segue into the intersectionality portion of this episode.